Following program is produced by Project Bait and does not reflect the views of this station.
This is part one of the Wells Report on race, identity, and DNA for My People. As anyone who's followed this show over the past few years knows, I like to discuss current events as well as historical events involving persons of African descent. And because my analyses have to do with persons of African descent, oftentimes I'll venture into the topic of race. Now, I'm not one to sit in front of a television for hours and follow the oftentimes ridiculous antics of folks trying to claim their 5 minutes of fame by any means possible. To be honest, if you catch me watching any episode of any mindless examples of how low American pop culture has sunken, you can believe I'm looking at it from a sociological or anthropological perspective. Now, that's not to say that there aren't any good TV shows out there. I'm just to the point that I'm tired of looking for them. With that said, a few weeks ago, I happened to see an interview with singer Mariah Carey when she appeared on the George Lopez show. Now, unless you've been living on some remote island in the South Pacific, isolated from any sources of media for the past 20 years, you are familiar with the voice and look of Mariah Carey. To this day, I still remember the first time I saw her. The year was 1990, and the debut album of the then 20-year-old Carey had yet to be released. The Detroit Pistons were playing the Portland Trail Blazers in the NBA Finals in a nationally televised game from the Palace in Auburn Hills. For the singing of America the Beautiful, up stepped this light-skinned woman with a mass of curly hair and a voice that rivaled Whitney Houston's. Right around that time, Columbia Records released Carey's first single, Vision of Love, and she embarked upon a record-breaking career of #1 hits, long notes, and short skirts. But as intriguing as her voice was, people were just as fascinated by her appearance. Was she a light-skinned black woman, or was she a white girl who sang like a black girl? Carey, like Prince before her and Tiger Woods after her, attempted to downplay the issue of race by choosing the middle ground. She wasn't black, she wasn't white, she was mixed, as we've come to call folks whose parents are said to be of different races. Carey played the mixed card for years, as in a 1999 issue of Jet magazine where she defined herself as, quote, a person of color who happens to be mixed with a lot of things, unquote. By her own admission, Carey was the offspring of a father who was Venezuelan and African American, and a mother who was of Irish ancestry. This brings me to her recent appearance on the George Lopez show, where Carey admitted that in the United States, she is considered a black woman, an admission that had the blogosphere on fire for a few days.
What color are you?
In this country, black.
Now, as I've said on previous editions of For My People, race has been determined to be a social construction that has little validity in the biological world. But this doesn't mean that science won't try to cash in on it, even if science itself has declared race to be a scientific fallacy. Carey's appearance on the George Lopez show was interesting in a number of ways. First was her defining herself as black after years of defining herself as mixed race. Second was her understanding that she is considered black in this country. And the third thing was the DNA test that was used to test the ancestry of George Lopez. After having taken the test, Lopez was told that he was 55% European, 32% Native American, 9% East Asian, and 4% Sub-Saharan African. So what's so interesting about these revelations? Well, let's look at the facts one by one. First, as I've said before, if biological race doesn't exist, then mixed race also doesn't exist. Second, it is apparent that Carey knows that in other countries, people may or may not define her as black. In many Latin American countries, light, brown, and even darker-skinned persons of African ancestry don't necessarily define themselves as black. The term for black in Brazil is negro, but listen to how these Brazilian children define themselves.
Sua cor?
Morena.
Você é morena?
Morena.
Você é morena?
Morena.
Você é morena?
Ah, eu sou morena.
Você é morena?
Morena.
Morena?
Moreno or morena is a term that can mean light brown, dark brown, brunette, or not quite black. For many people in Latin American countries, it is only through a process of re-education and an exposure to African history that people begin to understand their ancestral roots. Like this woman from the Dominican Republic.
When I first came to this country, I identified myself as a Dominican. I didn't identify as a black person. And it took going to college and taking African American courses for me to determine that I am black.
Interestingly, Americans who have parents that society deems to be of different races are increasingly choosing to define themselves as mixed race or biracial. Filmmaker Carolyn Battle Cochran, who has a black father and a white mother, said she passed for black for 30 plus years, but now identifies herself as biracial.
I had sort of posed as a black person for most of my life because
Cochran documented the challenges of biracial people in a provocative documentary entitled I'm Biracial, Not Black, Damn It. So while people in the U.S. are increasingly choosing to proclaim all of their genetic makeup, there is a campaign going on throughout Latin American countries aimed at encouraging people to identify themselves as black. As in this Brazilian ad featuring people who reject the term moreno and opt for the term negro.
Moreno não, eu sou negro.
Morena? Não, eu sou negra.
Moreno não, eu sou negro.
Morena não. Pode me chamar de negra.
The third and final factor that made Mariah Carey's appearance on the George Lopez show interesting was the use of a DNA test to determine Lopez's ancestral makeup. At first thought, the possibility of one learning one's genetic makeup sounds like a good thing. But as I'll explore in part 2 of this analysis, there's more to these tests than meets the eye. And as Mariah Carey, Barack Obama, and Tiger Woods can tell you, you don't need a DNA test to know how society sees you. This has been part 1 of the Wells Report on race, identity, and DNA for My People.
I'm Geraldine Watkins, the director of the Considine Little Rock Family Life Center, located at 8904 Woodward Avenue at the corner of Holbrook in Detroit. We offer swimming, basketball, as well as a full fitness center. We also have a beautiful hall available for rental of all occasions. For more information regarding programming and services, please contact us at 313-871-4673. Again, 313-871-4673.
There are 3 basic necessities every business needs: a business plan, a bookkeeper, and a website. Call Project BAIT for all 3. Call 313-871-3333. That's 313-871-3333.
If you are in business, you should promote your business in the Metro Business Information Guide. For more information, contact Chris Woodard at 645-2282. That's 313-645-2282.